Mr. Gaither, it's a pleasure to get to chat with you. I don't know. I honestly, I don't know what to call you. Mr. Gaither, Doctor.
Bill would be great. Your Honor would not.
That's what I'm thinking. It feels like something to revere. But anyway, so thank you for letting me. Your music has meant a ton to my family. Me growing up, it's just I can't imagine my understanding of God without the soundtrack of you and Gloria and the rest of the guys gals that you've pulled along. And so this is an absolute honor to get to ask questions I've always wondered. Like, for instance, I know you got the fine derby hat on, because you're just lounging around the house during this quarantine. But being someone that takes grooming seriously, it's been pretty much my whole career has just built on hair. It's just been built on hair. And so I wanted to start things out just asking, has your hair always been as amazing as we know it to be? Or is this something? How did this come to be? How long does it take, and not that kind of thing? Because this is called letting yourself go. There's no upkeep whatsoever. I get out of bed all the time. I'm saving. I'm efficient in my grooming. So I think it's beautiful, Bill, and I want to ask about it.
You're kind. When I was younger, it was no big deal at all, and I was kind of blessed. By the time I was 70, it started thinning out, and then we started doing the video stuff, and we were doing it with TNN in Nashville at the time, and those hair and makeup people said, "We've got a little trick. It comes in a can. It's called Peak, and it's like pepper." And they would start spreading it. Spreading it on it. I had hair all over, but it was thinning out. I mean, like every day it was getting thinner and thinner and thinner. And this crazy virus came along, and I said, I got a new look. This is what you're going to see with Bill from here on. I won't have to worry about to peak any longer because I had the hair on the side. It was just I had a hole in the top of my haircut. It was right.
That is brilliant. So my beard. I said that's brilliant. So if my beard starts to go, I just need to get me some to peak, and
it's called to peak, and it comes in a. At first it was hard to get. Because only the hair and makeup people TNing and got it. And I'd go out and I'd look. And at first I'd see that little hole on top of my haircut, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. I said, that is magic. But every now, but then I'd use it. And then if I'd go to bed on my pillow, the pillow would get black. And so I found a hat and I said, this is going to be it.
That's amazing. Well, wow. Well, it's always looked stellar, and it's been inspiring. And as I said, I just was trying to follow in footsteps of what I've seen happen in your life, and it seemed to help your writing out, because you're just like you and Gloria together are just like, I don't know. I guess you guys are like well over 800 songs by now. Do you know how many at this point you guys have written?
You know what? The copyright people take care of that. And I thought I heard them say the other day, we might be eight or maybe even 900. We have, the first 400 or 500, we basically did just the two of us. But as the music style started changing, we'd have a keyboard player who was younger, and he would hear and feel some stuff. And I quickly said, I do not want to. Gloria is a great lyricist, as you know. And I said, I don't want to hold back her lyrics because of some dated music. And I was probably more critical of myself. And I thought maybe that was just something I was dealing with. But when I looked over in the pop field and I saw Neil Diamond, as long as he was doing that sweet Caroline, that kind of stuff, people say that's Neil Diamond. And then some producer evidently told Neil Diamond, you need to write with some younger people. And he did a couple albums, and his fans said, no way.
Not into it.
That ain't Neil. John Denver ran into the same thing. However, I would say this. Gloria's had some pretty good success, and she ought to do something with you too. But she's had some pretty good success with Michael W. Smith and some of the younger writers. Matt Maller, I think, did something. The message of the gospel is the same today and yesterday and forever. But the package, the wrapper that comes in, changes and changes and changes and changes. And it's done it ever since Martin Luther started writing back during the Reformation. He was writing, and he was criticized during the day, writing this great theology in what they called street tunes. Can you imagine? A mighty fortress is our God. Can you imagine that being a street tune? Somebody else.
That got me. I didn't know you had the piano sitting there. That was amazing. I was like, that was magical. I was like, wait. It's like maybe thought music and it comes out. That's crazy. There's piano there. All right. You're sitting at the piano. I love it. Speaking of, so on the same train of thought, you were an English major. Yeah. And minor music. So language, I'm curious if you're talking about having to tell the God. So I always think of church music as like one of the most difficult things to compose because your lexicon's so limited. I always think of it. It makes me think of Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy Buffett's always got to take you to the beach. So you've got to say sunshine, ocean. You've got these trigger words, and so church music is kind of the same way that you've got. It's a limited lexicon, and being an English major, just thinking about the language, and as language has changed, how Southern gospel has become so colloquial. Like the language of Southern gospel is really how a lot of people in the West and America, and specifically the States, understand God. It's become a part of Americana, so to speak, in the way we talk and think about God. How do you approach language when you guys are writing, especially with you and Gloria as an unstoppable team together? What are y'all thinking about how to enunciate our story in relation to God?
You know what? I can remember 20 or 25 years ago, I was at Estes Park, where they used to have the Christian Artist Retreat.
Yeah.
And I was there 25, if you can believe this, 25 years ago as an old timer, because I've been around forever. Okay. And we had this young producer who they were calling it punk rock, I guess, gospel, whatever. And the question came up, then, how do you see music changing? I said this 25 years ago, and I will probably say it today. It changes from the perspective of whatever new young man, David or whoever the new young guy is.
Somebody besides me. I've been around too now.
Oh, you've been around for a while. Okay.
So, yeah, we're talking about somebody else here, Bill. I love it.
Okay. So it will change as much as whoever the new person is, who has an infectious love for Christ, and the only way he knows how to express it is the music that he grew up with. If it's Hungarian folk music, it's probably going to be Jesus in Hungarian folk music. If it's my son grew up in the '80s with Van Halen and named some of the Bon Jovi, and for him, when you expressed a mighty fortress as our God, you had to mighty, and with distorted guitars. And for the saints, they said, that's evil music. That is, that's worldly music. If you come out of an Appalachian background, you're probably going to have a nice little acoustic guitar, doing it. The wrapper constantly changes. The message is still the same. That is the reason in the hymn book that you will have a text, the same text, with 3 or 4 different hymn tunes. For instance, there's many different hymn tunes to Redeemed How I Love to Proclaim It, the old Fanny Crosby tune. You've got that, then you got the Irish kind of Celtic or Celtic feel of redeemed, how I love to proclaim it, redeemed, da, 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 da. And when you have a David Crowder that comes along with a song that we wrote 50 years ago, because he lives. And David, I want to thank you publicly. Louis Gigley or somebody sent me a clip of 60,000 kids there in the Georgia Dome. You sang it. And when he got to the chorus, and when I saw those kids singing it with tears coming down their eyes, I said to Gloria, you know what, there has to be a way to get, not just because we wrote it, but there's so many great hymns that die because musically they're in a package. And some of the new praise and worship writers are going back to the basic stuff. You know, the Amazing Grace thing that goes, my chains are gone, entice it. Back to the literature and the English background, it probably drove everything we did. Music's important. And I grew up listening to the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night. So when I saw the Ken Burns special of the country music, Gloria and I watched 16 hours of it. And we sat there, and when Merle Haggard talked about the single dad trying to raise two little girls and talking to his former wife, Alice, the kids need you. A package came in the mail today. It said, Alice, I don't know who you remember not, but this is Sabrina's birthday, the little 3-year-old birthday. A package came in the mail. I sent it, and I said it was from you. Gloria and I sat there with tears running down our face and saying, you know, this poor single guy. So the message, I don't care whether it's in country or whether it's in rock. I can remember the tune, I wish I'd have told him in the living years, whoever did that tune. I listen to that. I can see the gospel and everything. And I always think, if they only knew Jesus, you know, I think it might have made a difference in the living years a song. But the message will still live. I mean, the lyric of my sin, oh, the bliss of this glorious thought, my sin, not in part, but the whole, is nailed to the cross, and I bear it no more. Praise the Lord, oh my soul, it is well. But what a great lyric, and we cannot lose that. You know what my only criticism of the current praise and worship music is?
I love it.
They don't sing the good ones long enough. Because I can remember when I heard Good Father, somebody brought that to me and said, you got to hear this. And I said, that's a good song. That's a good song. You're a good father. And it was my nephew who was directing music at the church. 2 years later, I said, are you still singing Good Father? And he said, no, we're on the other stuff. I said, shame on you. Shame on you. When you find a good one, when you find a good one, hang on to it, you know, because you know what that does? It ties the body together. And the current body is tied together with songs like Good Father. And sometimes they move on to a new one that somebody told them to sing that really wasn't that good. When I was a kid, the same thing was true. A lot of songs were coming out, and some of them were good. A lot of them were bad. and you know what? We just remember the good, right? And the good last. I'm preaching, you know. So.
Oh no, dude, that's what we're here for. That's what I'm hoping for. I was wanting you talking the whole time. But yeah, the hymnal. You know, we think of the hymnal. I was like, man, gosh, they were sure great songwriters. You know, you've got 500 of these things that are just stellar. but it's 500 out of 10,000. You know, the cream, we those have been fully vetted, and they're just good songs. That's why they're in the hymnal. But we look back and there was a lot of stuff that didn't make the hymnal. You know, the Wesley's you're reading and singing about. You know, there's a lot.
And rightly so. They were bad tunes that shouldn't have made the hymnal.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, that's pretty. You know, what came to mind while you were talking about. I don't want to interrupt anything you had going on with the language part of it, because I think that I just, it's incredible the influence that you guys have had, as I said, just outside of the church even, and how we talk about, you know, the Holy Spirit, Holy Ghost, God, Jesus, the Son, all of our understanding as just Americans walking around in life and being inundated by something you might call religious. That it's incredible the amount of influence that Southern gospel language has had on our understanding of God, as especially in the South here. So I don't want to interrupt. If you think anything else there, being, as I said, an English major, that's great. But what came to mind is, as we're sitting around in this COVID deal, and, you know, we're always talking about togetherness. I think one of the things that maybe that I've heard you talk about before, that's more a part of the package or the wrapper or the form that this you know, eternal message sits in is harmony. That you know, when we're talking about togetherness and being together but distant, there's something really beautiful about voices joining and making something that's grander than what we could do alone. Even though the voice is so magical in and of itself, and the human, coming from a human body, it's nuts to be able to organize frequency like that. But when you get other people together, there's something really special. And I think perhaps harmonization is one of those forms that we could probably learn something today that we've kind of lost.
I think there's a theological element to this. Unison is powerful. If you want to make a statement, oh, hail the power of, you know, I remember during Promise Keepers to hear 60,000 men saying, oh, hail the, a lot of big stuff going. Unison is very important. I thought there's something about harmony.
Yeah.
And the Apostle Paul says, you know, the eye does not say to another part of the body, I have no need of thee. Or the body of Christ, when it comes together in beautiful harmony, another dimension happens, you know. Nothing wrong with the melody, nothing wrong with unison. But, and I think maybe we're missing some of that by not including hymns. It is well with my soul, with my soul. I'm not a great piano player. In fact, I had an old musician friend say, Gaither, I've never heard anybody play the piano as long as you have played and improve as little as you have. But the harmonics, I think, are important. I think it's an important part. It's an important part of theology. Now, at the same time, with our background in literature, both Gloria and I, the poetry is awfully important too, because you have lyrics like the It Is Well, and then you have a great lyric like, could we with ink the ocean fill, and were the skies of parchment made, were every stalk on earth a quill, and every man a scribe by trade, to write the love of God above would drain the oceans dry, nor could the scroll contain the whole, though stretched from sky to sky. O love of God, how rich, how pure, how marvelous and strong. Do we want to forget great theology and poetry like that? God help us. I hope not. And I think it's part of the responsibility of your generation and even of mine. I don't know how many more days I got on planet Earth, but I am going to spend it saying, this is too good to miss. This is too good to miss. You can't, and I can brag about that because I didn't write that lyric. But I would brag about some of the lyrics Gloria has written too.
I would too, and deservedly so. My goodness. I'm still on that harmony deal. I think it's just because of the season. Knowing I was going to get to talk to you, I just thought how incredible that so much of our language has been about togetherness, essential workers. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, everybody, what I love is people bristling if they feel like they're falling in the non-essential category. It's like,
yeah.
I'm here. Like, what the crap? I'm here. And I love that what we're seeing though is that everyone is essential, and I think that's why everybody bristles at that terminology that began early on. There are people that are really out there sacrificing a lot, risking a lot. But I think it's teaching us something as humans, that all of us are valuable and we all have a role, which is, as you said, theological in the sense of, the hand and the eye and the arm and the leg and the body of Christ is
it's all important
to have each of us. And harmony is such as you said, an example of that theological idea. That you can immediately hear. And I love the Music Man deal too. Like, it's very difficult to be in disagreement verbally when we're harmonizing.
Yeah. It's hard to argue when you think. And the interesting thing in the musical is there was never a crossword between the four of them. When you'd see them walking down the street, they would be doing, light a rose, I am home again, rose to meet the sun back in the sky. They were singing everywhere they went because they learned harmony and getting along together. So I think there's a theological gem there somewhere.
I love it. Well, I really been thinking about what you guys have modeled. I do think it's something that we missed. As you said, it's incredible singing in unison, and the music, I think, is really robust and a reclamation of pop art within the church where we are right now. That it sounds current. Yeah. A lot of the contemporary services sound very similar to what you'd hear in a JCPenney's commercial. I think that's a good thing in the sense that it's authentic. And as you were saying earlier, it's like a Hungarian or Yugoslavian folk song. It's coming from where we are. It's part of our language. So I think a lot of that's beautiful, but there's not a lot of emphasis in pop music on harmonization these days. And so our reflection of it is, I think we're lesser for not having that among us or having it as part of our liturgy, I guess. Go ahead.
Gloria and I can remember going to a Neil Diamond concert, 20, 30 years ago, and went out in the hallway afterwards because there was a spiritual quality about Neil. I don't know where he is, theologically and all that kind of stuff. But the togetherness. You remember after the Boston bombing, he went up there to the Red Sox stadium and had the whole crowd singing, Sweet Caroline, and everybody was singing. There's something happens when people come together and sing. I don't care what the tune is. But I went back in the lobby afterwards and I ran into people everywhere. Gloria and I did say, Bill and Gloria, how you doing? Wasn't that wonderful? They're nice. And I just salute anybody who can do something to bring people together. And of course, a lot of the tunes we have written have been an attempt to go, loving God, loving each other, making music with our friends, loving God, loving each other, and the story never ends. A lot of our songs have been about when they asked Jesus, what's the most important commandment? He said there are really two. Love God with all your heart, and then love your neighbor as yourself.
Great, man. That's great. I love it. Now, so how did you go how did you get into doing what you're doing? Like, how did it start? How did you start doing this? Or church
as a kid, David, you say you're from Texarkana?
Yes. Are you barely made it in our time republic?
So you're on the Texas side.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've performed there. What's it called? The Rossboro Theater.
The theater. Yeah, the Rossboro Theater.
Yeah. And we had the mayors of both cities on both sides that came out that night and gave us the key to the city. They were so kind to us.
Oh.
I grew up listening to male quartets, and back in the 50s, it was basically pop music because in the pop field, you would have the Mills Brothers. Maybe I'm right, and maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm weak, and maybe I'm strong, but nevertheless I'm in love with you. You'd have all that beautiful harmony stuff. You'd have the Ink Spots, the Four Aces, the Mills Brothers, the Four Preps, the Four Lads, all kind of male quartets. Mm-hmm. So on the gospel side, you would have the Statesmen. They were singing, I wouldn't have strength to bear my sorrow if God didn't care. And so it would be beautiful part. And I grew up on that. Uh-huh. In the 60s, it's interesting. And at that point, they just called it gospel music.
Yeah, okay.
In the 60s, I think that genre of music got spooked by the country popularity that was catching on. Because in the 50s, country music was kind of called hillbilly music, you know? Totally. And, so in the 60s, when the country music started coming uptown a little bit with Marty Robbins and so the country people started using guitars, bass. When I heard the first steel guitar on a gospel tune, I went, I'm not sure of that. I'm not sure. So I grew up on that music. Okay, when I was 19 years old, I didn't go to college. I went out and I had gone to a music camp down in Dallas, Texas, where there were 600 kids for 3 weeks who loved the same kind of music I loved. And they could read, they could harmonize. I was there for 3 weeks. So when I was 19, I went out and said, we're going to do this professionally. Huh. And so I went with 3 other young kids. Huh. We did it for 10 months. And a good thing happened. We starved to death.
We're ready
nobody wanted to hear what we were going to do. An interesting thing happened. I looked at my keyboard skills and I said, you're okay, but you're not great. I mean, I compare myself to like Jackie Marshall and some of the people who were keyboard. And I had to look in the mirror and I said, you can sing. You're not a great singer. And you're never going to be that great. And I think that is hard for kids who are trying to follow dreams. But I think sometimes you got to be honest with your gifts. So at that point, I said, I better go back and major in something else and try to do something else. The easiest thing for me to have done would have been go back and major in music. But I didn't want to spend the rest of my life poking out notes for kids who couldn't hear parts. I said, I can't do that the rest of my life. Mm-hmm. But I did like English, and I did love literature, and I became a teacher. And I said this one time to some young kids in an artist circle. And I said, so I hung up my dream for 10 years, from 19 to 29. And I think this is an important part of the story.
Absolutely. Goodness.
And this kid asked me, well, what did you do in the 10 years where you couldn't do what you really wanted to do? Mm-hmm. I said, I'm glad you asked the question. I became the best English teacher that Alexandria Monroe High School ever had. I was determined to teach music or teach. And you know what? I still run into kids that I had back when I was teaching school. That's incredible. David, we can do one thing when we come in on a night where we blow in, we blow off, and we blow out, and then we're in another town. And I'm not putting that down. You got emails, and I've got emails of people who've given their heart to Christ and all that. But I still run into the kids that I had as a teacher. And they say, Mr. Gaither, I had you in 11th grade English. The last guy told me that, had a red light on the top of his car. He was a state trooper, and he stopped me. I had you in 11th grade English class. And I said, oh, Lord, I hope I gave you a good grade.
That's amazing. I guess he let you go, right? Surely.
He let me go. He said, because you know what? You were my favorite teacher.
There you go, man.
And I made up my mind. I thought it'd be and I told this kid who was waiting on his dream to come true in the music field. I told this, he said, what did you do in the meantime? I said, I became the best. And when I quit teaching school, I taught for 3 years longer than I had to, because by that time, what I found out, I wasn't a great singer and I wasn't a great player, but I started writing songs. And I said, unlike my playing, these songs are better than some of the. God gave me the confidence and the songwriting, and then on top of that, I became what I call a pretty good producer. I could put this stuff together and make it work. So I would encourage everybody. Maybe you're not going to be a great performer. Maybe you are. I don't know. And maybe not be the greatest singer. Find out what your gifts are. And so after 10 years of teaching, the last 3 years, we were doing so well. My accountant said, why do you keep teaching? I said, I love teaching. I love these kids. I don't want to give it up. But I couldn't do both, because by that time we were getting calls. And that's the first time I ran into writer/artist. There were people who said, no, we would, because I would feed my songs to other good performers who knew how to perform it and get it out there.
Yeah.
And I ran into those people who, like Bob Dylan, they would say, I don't care if you can sing great or anything. I want you to hear you communicate your songs and do what you do. So then we started performing, and God started blessing that. That was probably in 68, 69.
Okay.
And it wasn't long until we were we started out in high school auditoriums, city auditoriums, and this little trio, just with my brother and Gloria and me. Gloria's never claimed to be a singer. Now, my brother was a great singer. So at least we had one singer in the group. But we had a guy who managed the Fort Worth Tarrant County Convention Center. It held 14,000 people. And I had an attorney friend who was trying to get an artist into that auditorium or that venue. This is in 69. Are you ready for this, David? He said, there are only 2 people who fill this auditorium. So Elvis fills it. And said, and then there's a school teacher and his wife and his brother up in Indiana. He said that it's the darndest thing you ever saw. They just come in with a piano and a bass, and they say, we just wrote this song, sing it with us. Something beautiful. I don't know where you wanted all of that. You can cut it out if you don't want to use it.
No, that's absolutely perfect. No, that's all just incredible. In fact, was Gloria writing with you then too? By the time you guys were out from the beginning?
I met Gloria in 1963 at the school. Now, she wasn't a student, so don't panic. She was a teacher, and I met her. And people said, why did you fall in love with? First of all, she was a beautiful little cat. She's still the most beautiful grandmother she's 77 years old. That's a beautiful lady. And her looks obviously got my attention. But when I started talking with her, her depth in literature and philosophy, and she loved the Lord. So that all brought us together. And David, it wasn't until I had dated her for about a month or 2, I said, there's another side you need to know about me. Because academics at that time were not into gospel music. I mean, they thought we were, crazy little flakes, And I said, I write songs. Oh, you did? Let me hear one of them. And
great.
So I showed her, and I went, what do you think? That's pretty good, Mark Lowry kids me about, you knew a meal ticket when you saw it. I said, I did not marry her for that. We were already in love.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
That's great, man. Y'all are just an unstoppable team. It's really as well something that's been modeled. So
you know what has helped us, because styles are going to come and they're going to go. Okay. I don't care what the style is. I mean, I've seen it too long. And then the producers are going to say, you need to change this. And I remember when John Denver said, this is what I do. Okay. I can't change it, And so I think what we have done is simply, people say, do you listen to other music? We listen to everything. Probably if you push me to say, what's your favorite music? It's a combination between country and classical.
Okay.
Because I got to tell you, those harmonics of Beethoven, my lands, Mozart's harmonics. I mean, I like to play it, but I mean, they're too complicated for me. But I listen to all of that and I say, these guys were geniuses. And we are all who we are. You are who you are by all of those influences that have come into your ears and to your mind. There's another thing that happens today, too, is back in the 50s, I thought people got the music all through their ears. But they get it through their ears and also through their eyes.
Yeah.
If they see somebody that they like, they'll take it.
Totally.
I remember when Presley came along in 54, 55, I thought, that's not a very good voice. Forget it. Forget his voice. He had all that other stuff, and now I listen to him and say, I get it. I get it. And so music is interesting. I don't care whether, you're an interesting character. I look at you and even if you weren't in music, I would look twice because of the beard, the glasses, the hat and everything,
Hobo stole a car.
Yo,
what's he driving? Whose car is that? He got it.
Hey, can I tell you? I heard your "Because He Lives" that you did with the two gals. One had a baby.
For Easter, we did that at Easter deal. Yeah.
Oh man, did you get a good response on that?
Oh my goodness, yeah. People flipped out of it. That's so great, though. Okay, so along that train of thought, so you paused your dream for 10 years. Did your dream, did it encompass songs in a hymnal and songs being sung generationally? Was that in the dream?
I think writers just write, and if nobody heard it, they'd still write. Emily Dickinson had only 4 or 5 of her poems published during her lifetime. The rest of them was after she was dead. Larry Gatlin told me a story the other day that you might find interesting. There was a country writer who'd come to Nashville, and she got a contract, and she was doing some recording, but it wasn't catching on. She'd been there 2 or 3 years. And she was talking to Larry, and she was really discouraged and depressed. And she said, I'm just going to go home and forget all of it. And Larry said, you're going to what? I'm going to forget. He said, you're not going to write anymore? She said, no. Larry looked at her and said, where are you going to turn in your heart?
Wow.
Where are you going to turn in your heart? You can quit and walk away from all this, but where are you going to turn in?
Wow.
For us who write, and I would say it's true in the country field too, the real writer. Hank Williams, when he wrote, hear that lonesome whippoorwill, it sounds too blue to fly. The midnight train is whining low. I'm so lonesome I could cry. He'd have written that song if nobody had heard it.
Wow.
And he was a country writer. You're going to write songs about Jesus, and I'm going to write songs about Jesus if nobody hears it. Because if we don't do it, where are we going to turn in our hearts?
That's amazing. That is so well said. Wow. Well, so we've got the trio, you guys are filling up at least one arena. And you've been quite self-deprecating. So I can see how you would expand into the, Gaither band where you got, all these stellar singers that your production mind is plucking from near and far. How did that come about? Like, and what made you jump to designate? Okay, we got the trio thing going, but now we're gonna blow up this thing in a different way.
When the trio started catching on in 66, 67, and we just graduated, first of all in churches, and the churches couldn't hold them in at city auditoriums and then arenas. We had probably a pretty good 20 years until about 83, 84. And in artistry, that started going down because there were new, younger artists coming up with some new, more exciting stuff. That started going down in the mid 80s. We had backup singers at that time because we quickly understood that our singing by ourselves was just not that stunning. In our backup group, we had Steve Green, a guy named Lee Young, and I think Cosette Bird, and a little gal that graduated from Anderson and was singing in this studio for backup stuff named Sandy Patty.
Sandy Patty, yeah, right.
Okay. So with the two male guys, one night, Gary McSpadden, who took my brother's part, and I grew up in the Southern Quartet field. And there was an old Stuart Hammond song called, "Oh, it's a great, great morning, your first day in heaven, when you stroll down the Golden Avenue. There are mansions left and right, and you thrill to every sight, and the saints are always shouting, saying, how do you do? Oh, it's a great, great," just a fun tune. And so we were backstage teaching it to young Steve and Lee Young. And it was good. We said, let's go out and do it in the second half, just for the fun of it. We did it, and it tore the place down because people love harmony, harmony, harmony. So that's in the middle of 85. So we did it that night. So we said, let's do it the next night. Every night it was terror. And so finally we said, this is good. So we learned a couple more tunes. And finally, out of the trio, and now you got to understand, Gloria from the beginning said, I'm not a singer. But every night she'd go out, and she wasn't a great singer. But when she would talk, when she would say, I'd sit by the bedside of a dying saint, and they'd say the name, when she talked, God came, and so that made the trio kind of special. So the vocal band kept catching on, and she said, ha ha, Bill, you've got what you've always wanted, a great singing group. And I was the least of the four of them, okay? But I knew how to make it work and put it together. So we had various personnels in the beginning. We were having a hard time making a connection. We weren't contemporary, and we were a little bit too hot for the Southern gospel crowd. We were just somebody. And so finally I said to our record company, we probably better hang this up because I don't think anybody cares, because the artistry will do this and they'll do this. Trust me, every artist who's listening, this will happen. It's happened from the beginning of time. Okay. But before we hang it up, let's bring in some of those 1950 people who paid a big price. Jay Cass of the Statesman, Hovey of the Statesman, James Blackwood of the old Blackwood Brothers, Howard and Vestal Goodman of the old Happy Goodman family, and just some people who had retired. And nobody really cared anymore because music styles had changed. Something else had happened. And we said, we care. And our record company said, oh, Bill, don't do that. That will ruin your image. I said, what image? Nobody knows who we are. They couldn't care less who we are, So we went in and went, living below in this old sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford, striving along to face temptation sore. Tell you, where could I go but to the Lord? Where could I go? I mean, I think during this pandemic, where could I go? Where could I go? Needing a refuge for my soul. Needing a friend to help me to the end. Where could I go? We would do that one song with Vestal taking a line. Larry Gatlin came in. He took a line. Jake Hess took a line. And then Michael English came out and did that big old voice of his. It's a place. And we did that as our swan song. That was going to be Alpha and Omega. So that would have been our Omega, our swan song. God has a weird sense of humor. That was because I was going to hang it up at 65. I had been a good steward of the money that we'd made, and I had enough to retire and help my church and help some other people. I could go back to the university and teach. We put that on the 700 Club, and the phones went bonkers. They ran it the second time, the third time. That was in 1991. We made another probably 200, 250 videos. And as last time I heard from the marketing people, they've sold close to 40 million copies. Is that a God thing? That's a God thing.
That is amazing.
That's a God thing. I was not that good. All I wanted to do was do harmony, 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 make some harmony with my friends. And I found out. What'd you say?
That's amazing, though. Like you let go, and then all of a sudden, that's such a lesson, man.
It's like a boomerang, and it's like what we're doing now. All of us are doing the internet thing, just giving away. Because you know what? That's built into the fabric of the universe. That's built into the fabric of the theology of Jesus. That's where you just give it away, and God honors it, and great things happen. That was in 91, and I'm sitting here saying, I can't believe what's happening because of the internet.
That is nuts. I love it, man. That is I hope to model that. Keep the hands open. That's incredible. Well, we need to talk about. You mentioned us doing that song at Easter, but I've been carrying that Because He Lives song. It's such a man. What a it's just crazy. That song for me, some of the great hymns that you quoted, it's just one of those that has been there my whole life, and it keeps changing. It keeps sneaking up on me, and it'll get me. So I didn't know, Because He Lives is like, okay, Because He Lives, that's a pretty big, and then what, Because He Lives what, and then to be able to sit, like the punchline be, I can face tomorrow. That
life is worth a living.
Yeah, and all fear is gone. Was there anything like life-wise, like were you and Gloria? Was there a particular thing you were singing at and to, like to get yourself through? You're talking about where would your heart turn? Was it turned in a particular direction during the writing of that?
I think most artists are born out of saying that's good, but this could be better. For instance, the guy who invented the car, I don't know who he was, but he rode to town many times behind two horses, doing this with the horses. Giddy up, get up. He probably got tired of that. He says, there's got to be a better way to get to town than this. And all of a sudden we're in automobiles. I think a little bit, Gloria and I would sit and listen to sermons, good sermons that would say, it's totally from the Bible. This is true. But I would, sometimes I'd say, but the preacher never told me why it was important to me on Monday and Tuesday. So I think a lot of the songs that we wrote out of, I believe, and we wrote a song, and the old rugged cross made the difference in a life bound for heartache and defeat. I will praise Him forever and ever, for the cross made the difference for me. We always came from the perspective of why does that make any difference to us on Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday? So she had a verse that said, "There's a life. Twas a life filled with aimless desperation, without hope. Walk the shell of a man." Then a hand with a nail print pressed downward, just one touch, and a new life began. And the old rugged cross made the difference. We have always come back to, why does it make any difference? So I look at because he lives. I don't think we just thought it through this way. We wrote that in 69, 70 at a very turbulent time. The Kennedy assassination, and then Bobby Kennedy assassination, Martin Luther King's assassination, civil rights exploding, the Vietnam War. I was in Nashville one night in the Sheraton Hotel at 10 o'clock, and I looked down on the streets from a 10th story up. There was nobody in the streets of Nashville.
Wow.
I mean, cities were shut down. It was kind of an eerie feeling, a little bit like now, an eerie feeling. And Gloria was pregnant, and we said, who in the world would bring a baby in this world in times like this? And we got thinking, history has proved this world's never been very stable. Even when Jesus was born, why would anybody bring a baby into that particular time?
Right. Yeah.
We don't bring babies into the world because history is stable. We bring babies into the world because the resurrection is true. And because he lived and he died and he rose again, we can look at viruses. We can look at all kinds of impossible situations and say, we can make it because he lives. And so at that, I mean, when I grew up and singing a song called He Lives, Christ Jesus lives today, he walks with me. And I always loved that song as a kid.
Absolutely.
But I guess I'm saying this in hindsight. I guess we said, why does it make any difference on Monday and Tuesday? So we wrote, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. When we first wrote that, we were in a church in Words Matter, okay? We were in a church in Illinois, and a lady came up to me and said, we sang your song because he lives, but we changed one word. I said, what'd you change? She said, we say, because he lives, I'm excited about tomorrow. I said, good for you. But there's some days, if I could just face tomorrow. You think words don't matter? I'm excited about a lot of things. But on a given day, I mean, there have been times during this pandemic that I've gone to bed and said, didn't I just do this just a few minutes ago? I went to bed, but it was 24 hours ago. And we've, and so I get up in the morning and say, didn't I just get up out of this? And we go and drink coffee, And it's a little strange. And at that point, I don't think I'm ready to say I'm excited about tomorrow, but because he lives. So the word face is I can face tomorrow because he lives. And the faith people in the faith theology say they love this line, all fear is gone. Now, on a given day, I got to be honest, probably I deal with fear, but faith is the opposite of fear. And I think that makes a great discussion. I hope I'm not talking too long. This is your show, Dave. But we could talk a whole show about faith versus science, because right now science is telling us this is what you ought to do. If you're in my age bracket, you probably better not be close. We're separated 500 miles today. Okay. So the faith versus science. That's a big thing. So in that song, I'm not trying, we didn't think this when we were writing it. We thought, because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, all fear is gone. Now, here is the point, I think. There are a lot of things about tomorrow. The old hymn writer, Ira Stampfield, said it. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow. So all I can say in this uncertain time is this. Many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I can tell you this for sure. I'm in good hands. Allstate says they're in good hands, but you want to really be in real good hands? Because I know, he holds the future. And here's the line I think might be helpful to somebody who is so depressed they're at the point of ending it. Life is worth the living. Not because the facts are good right now, not because the science is good, not because historically we won't look back and say this was a bad, terrible time, but life is worth the living just because he lives. And to me, it takes the old song that I grew up with, He Lives, another step farther and said, because he lives.
That's exactly it.
I don't know. I'm talking too much.
No, you're not.
Gloria tells me many times, said, Bill, let the other guy talk. This is your show.
No, I know that feeling. Yeah. My shins are mostly bruised if we're out at dinner, and my wife's nearby can reach me, kicking me in the shins. Please be quiet, David. But what I love about what you're saying, and I think it's been, throughout y'all's writing, is the room for the human, like the human experience of and the difficulty that comes with being alive and breathing here, and the things that come our way. I think y'all talk about it so well. The psalmist did. I don't. A lot of our songwriting, our contemporary songwriting, doesn't allow for the plaintive plea from the cave. David in the cave. He was in the cave before he was king. I think that you guys have done such a great job of being able to sing songs that bring us out of our current situation, and as you said, sing in a way that inspires and breathes faith back into us, so we can hope again. And I love that your language has accommodated some of the more difficult things in life, and even in that Because He Lives song, even the humanness of life. To hold a newborn baby is a pretty significant moment for anyone that's had a kid, and to accommodate that in a song like this and to relate it theologically to our understanding of our Father, it's incredible. I just am so grateful.
I like what you just said about the contemporary writers with David. Gloria talked to a group of young writers, said, how many of you are in praise and worship music? And they'll help him. How many of you have read 1st and 2nd Kings? Not many raise their hands. She said, shame on you
No.
for ripping off David's positive hook lines without knowing how he got there. Because 80% of Psalms is saying, oh God, where are you?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah. Why are we so afraid? We wrote a song one time when I believe, help thou my unbelief.
Yeah.
I take the finite risk of trusting like a child. I'd love to hear you do that. I believe, help thou my. I'm pitching a tune right now.
That's why you're the pro. That's why you're the pro. Yeah. See?
Help thou my unbelief.
Entrepreneurial as well. Yeah. Writer and entrepreneur.
I walk into the unknown, trusting all the while. I long so much to feel the warmth that others seem to know. But should I never feel a thing, I claim him even so. I believe, help thou my unbelief. I walk into the unknown, trusting. All the while.
This is awesome. I am so happy right now. This is just a sheer joy. I mean, for real. I can't tell you what you've meant to the church, and I just love that still, like, even as recently as this crisis has been among us, how timely. And it's timeless. It's like the songs you're writing they're timeless, fitting perfectly in a situation and cultural moment, late 60s, early 70s, and right now, just as relevant and truthful and inspiring in the middle of this COVID stuff. So I love you guys, and certainly appreciate all of the effort over the years and all of the hard work, all of the stuff that you have, all the sweat and tears and all that stuff. And one last question though, because you're a road hog, man. You're still, you guys, you got dates on the calendar, dude. August is coming, and I see it waiting out there. It's like Tulsa, Oklahoma. Here comes the Gaithers. So I just need to know, like, over the years, is there like a particular event or gathering or like moment that you guys look at each other and go, my goodness, that was it right there. That was, you mentioned the Passion deal where you got those 60,000 college kids, I've got so many of those little moments that I stuck in my head, and just, I pull out occasionally and go, my goodness, like that's just crazy. That is definitely not of me. There's something bigger afoot.
The name of Dottie Rambo, the songwriter. I had the chance to spend an hour and a half, and Reba, the daughter of Buck, her father, Buck Rambo, she said, I don't know how coherent he will be. This is like a month before he died. We got together. So here are two old road warriors, who've been to Grammys, who've had Doves, who've had, thousands of people, what we talked about for 2 hours, and when I walked in, his eyes were this big. You know what we talked about? Those moments in our ministry when God showed up. And it was interesting. God can show up in 60,000 people. True.
Sure.
But a lot of them were back in the church days. Mm-hmm. And I can remember one of the stories that I remembered. We were, and I would have protect the church and the people. We were at a church on a Sunday morning. And the minister of music said, now you sing, and then the pastor will bring a gospel message because he wants to make sure they're getting the gospel. I said, fine. And so we sang, and we just written, and the Oregon Cross made the difference. But in between it, one of the verses, Gloria did one of her spontaneous talks. Okay. Yeah. And so she just talks off the cuff for about 10, 15 minutes. And she's anointed. When she talks, God comes, And so when we got done, the pastor got up, in all fairness, and said, some of you have not been to the cross for a long time. Bow your heads, close your eyes. And he gave an invitation. Mm-hmm. And I prayed a prayer and gave an invitation. People started coming from all over the church. It was probably 1,000, 1,500 people. Mm-hmm. Started coming from all over the church. Halfway through that invitation, a beautiful 30, 35-year-old came dressed to the T, just beautiful. And the church went like a gasp. Hmm. It was the pastor's wayward daughter. I think when she was 18, 19, 20, she had a baby out of wedlock. And she had walked away from the church for 10, 15 years. Mm. God showed up. Mm-hmm. Buck and I and then he said, we were in a revival meeting one night. He would tell a story, and I would tell a story. When I think back over our career, those were moments. I think back to the praise gathering that we had back in the early days in Indianapolis every year. I think the capacity was 14,000, 15,000 people. But we would have united choirs from Olivet Nazarene College and Taylor University, and young and old. And it was an attempt to try to bring together contemporary and all that. I am hoping, David, that out of this time that we're down, the lines between the styles of music, and that's all it is, it's styles, it's never theology, will start falling down, and we'll say, the point is the house is on fire. We got to use whatever ladder we can use to rescue as many people as we can. I kind of see this happening. It is kind of beautiful. At this point, I don't care if it's Hungarian folk music. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it comes from the Caribbean. I don't care if the drums will drive you out of the room. I don't care if it's a beautiful classic. When God shows up, nobody cares what style it is. And I'm kind of hoping and praying for that, because at this point, somebody has said, we're all in this together. We're on the same boat together. And somebody said, not so fast. We're in the same storm together. But we're really in different boats. Some boats are bigger than other boats, at this point. I'd like to see us all really get in the same boat. And say, let's get out of this place.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Amazing. Will Gaither, thank you. This was absolutely a joy. Absolutely joy. I want to say as well, thanks to Worship Together for making this happen and letting us chat in front of people. Yeah, this is great. You warriors out there on the internet machine, I hope that this was as amazing for you as it was for me. And Bill, you're a legend, dude. Tell Gloria we say hi. We know who's really working and pulling the strings. We get it. We know. You're just good looking. That's what it is. All right, brother. Have a good one.
We are all blessed, and I was blessed to have this opportunity today. So thank you very, very much. But stay tuned afterwards. I want to pitch you a couple tunes.